and I'm joined by one of the world's leading foreign policy analysts, global commentator, CNN talk show host, columnist at the Washington Post, and author. Fareed Zakaria joins me. Fareed, appreciate you joining us there from New York. First, right at the very outset, give us a sense, Fareed, of what the last 6 weeks, or the first 6 weeks of Donald Trump 2.0, in your view, have meant for United States and the world.
Thank you, Rajdeep. Always a pleasure to be with you. Look, it has been overwhelming because not just of the pace, but the scale and the kind of almost revolutionary nature of what Trump is doing. Trump really is in 2.0 effecting a much larger policy revolution than anything that he did in 1.0 in his first term. Why is this? Because in the first term, you remember, we now know from multiple sources, he didn't expect to win. They were taken by surprise, and they immediately brought in two groups of people who were to provide counsel. One was the traditional Republican establishment, you know, the grandees of the Republican Party, the main congressional leaders. And those people guided a lot of Trump's policy. The second were a group of generals. Trump was very enamored with generals, if you remember, in the first term. None of those people are present the second time around, because what Trump found was that push comes to shove, those people were not fundamentally loyal to him. I think the way they would put it is that they were more loyal to the country and Constitution, but the way Trump viewed it, they were disloyal to him. So he is now completely without guardrails from either the Republican establishment or the kind of foreign policy establishment that the military represented. And as a result, what you're seeing is a fairly radical remaking of both American foreign policy and domestic policy. On the foreign policy side, a much more transactional attitude towards the entire world. And on the domestic side, an effort to really radically remake the American welfare state, administrative state. Both have far-reaching implications.
I'll come to the specifics, both foreign policy and domestic, in a moment. But are you surprised just by the speed with which this has happened, that in the space of 6 weeks, Donald Trump, as you say, is radically trying to transform foreign policy and domestic policy, just the speed with which he's going ahead with whatever he promised during the campaign?
But the key to understanding it is Steve Bannon, who was, if you remember, his first senior advisor, and still, I think, is very influential within that MAGA world, though Trump seems to have soured on him. Steve Bannon said, the key here is you want to flood the zone. You want to do so much that it overwhelms the opposition. It makes it impossible for them to know what should they focus on, what should they oppose, you know. And that has been a very effective strategy in the short term. In the medium term, it'll be interesting to see what happens, because many of these things that he has done, courts are ruling are either overreach or outright illegal. And then you will get to the most dramatic and potentially dangerous issue, which is, will Donald Trump obey court orders? Really, no American president, you know, in modern history has ever taken the attitude he has taken. Even Nixon, when Richard Nixon was ordered by the court to hand over the Watergate tapes and things like that, he obeyed all court orders. This is a new challenge. So that is the potentially most revolutionary change that might happen.
Are you saying, when you say that if tomorrow Donald Trump wants to, and there's been some talk of it, wants to have a third term, he could push in for a constitutional amendment?
That would be very hard, because that would require two-thirds majorities in both houses, plus two-thirds of majority in the state legislatures. And he doesn't have anything close to that kind of support. No, what I mean is something very simple. And, you know, frankly, this is there are parallels in India, which is the courts, for example, have said that his freezing of foreign aid is illegal. The Congress passed the bills requiring that foreign aid be spent. The president does not have the ability to to stop that. He can try and veto it, and then Congress can override it. But that all happened. These are legislative issues that have been done. The court has said unfreeze the aid. So right now, what Trump is doing is he's found some. They're adhering to the letter, but not the spirit of the law. They're saying, okay, we're going to unfreeze it. We just have put in place new procedures to review the aid to make sure that there's no fraud. And the procedures are such that no money has been passed through. At some point, the court will say, quit stalling, quit fooling around. You have to obey us. And what happens then? There is a famous court moment in the 19th century with Andrew Jackson's presidency, and J.D. Vance has cited this, which is why it's so significant, which is the Supreme Court ruled against then President Andrew Jackson. And Jackson said, the Chief Justice has issued his ruling, now let him enforce it. Meaning, the court has no army, the court has no coercive power, and if the president just defies the court, what do? It's a huge constitutional problem.
That's for the future.